Welcome, everyone, to the weekly Wrangle. This week, I'm excited to have Rob joining us for an interview. And Rob is a fantastic artist. He's out in London right now, working with Frame Store on a variety of projects. So welcome to the weekly Wrangle, Rob. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we went live here, I was asking ChatGPT what would be a cheeky question to ask someone from London. And it had a lot of interesting things to say. It was talking about Australians. It was talking about the weather. But the thing that really caught my attention the most was the fact that, and I didn't know this, that some people from London actually put milk in their tea. Did you know this? And what side of London are you from? Are you from north or south?
I'm currently in north. Well, I've just recently moved just outside of London, but historically I'm from North London, I would say. But
so this must be something that the southern Londoners do, I'm assuming.
Put milk.
Yeah, they put milk in their tea, right?
I mean, I think it's pretty common throughout UK, but I'm a coffee drinker. I'm a flat white. I don't do my teas. Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then that's probably all the time we got for this interview. So no, I can't talk. Coffee? No, I love coffee. The thing is, I don't got much room to talk as an American because we put corn syrup in some of our teas, which is even more a dastardly
an interesting choice. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so I want to get things started off with the important questions like tea and milk, but also more importantly, a bit about your background. Like, how did you get to Frame Store? What initially got you inspired by CGI? Can you take us through a little journey of what got you to where you are?
Yeah, I'll do a kind of overview. I'll probably start very early on as a kid, and that was loving Toy Story 1. Used to be my favorite film, and I always wanted to get into animation. Historically, I wanted to get into more stylized animation, more Disney. That was what really kind of drove me as a kid. That was what I was interested in. And then going through school, I studied art and maths. And I remember chatting with my dad, like, what kind of profession can I go down that is both artistic and mathematical? And it was literally like every search result was like visual effects. So I was like, oh, and I already liked visual effects. I was like, yeah, okay, right, it's set in motion there. I went to Bournemouth University, which is quite an established VFX university in the UK. And then I worked in Bournemouth for 2 years at Outpost VFX. And then after that, I made the transition to come to London, and I went to the Mill, which is no longer a company at the moment, but I was working there for about 3.5 years in advertisement. And then, I moved to film. And I've been at Frame Store for about 4.5 years now. But really enjoying it. Very much enjoying film. It kind of matches my skill set with working in Houdini and working with the team. So very enjoying it a lot.
Nice.
So that's my kind of progression.
Yeah, it sounds like
I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a pretty straight shot for the most part, which is awesome.
I was quite fortunate. There wasn't too much thinking. It was almost like felt quite natural of what I was keen and interested in, and it kind of just, the passion became the job, the hobby became the job. So,
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Now, I'm wondering, for people that are currently in college right now, and I know things have changed a lot, I imagine, since you were in college back then versus now, but if you could go back and give yourself advice or give anyone else advice on how to make the most of the college experience and how to do it right, what advice would that be exactly?
That is a tricky question. So I can give you my feelings and thoughts, because I graduated like 10 years ago, so I'm not sure of the field now. But I always thought visual effects is quite a very specific thing. So I would say university degrees are very good for certain things, for jobs and industries, and also moving abroad as well. Like if you wanted to go to America to work, you need a degree, so these are all great. Personally, I kind of wish I studied maybe something a bit broader, like a computer science, that was more applicable to different industries, and then done a specialist 1 year or training course in VFX. So I think but I don't think my decision was particularly wrong doing what I did, because I got a job. I went into my industry and it worked out, but yeah, that's maybe what I'd suggest. But definitely the training material online and the 1 year courses that you can do and stuff with people are so good now that you can catch up with people pretty quickly and stuff like that. So
Would you say that a lot of it really comes down to just getting the hard skills and just knowing your stuff? Like, degree or no degree, like, the most important thing is to know your stuff of, how to use Houdini, how to perhaps program in Python or what have you. Do you think that is the number one thing? Or do you think that there's more value in having a network of people that you are surrounded by in university? And it's hard to say for me, like, which one is more impactful, your actual skills or like the people you get to know along the way?
I think they're both, one's not necessarily more than the other, and they're both all valuable, because you can't really have network without skills, and you can't have skills without network. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily focus directly on one, but I would say that being able to communicate with people, work with people, and also iterate on something, even when you're struggling with it, is such a good skill, because it's quite easy, if I was just doing my own work, to get to a point and then get bored of it and not continue with that. And in a production or working with people, you can't just not do it, So you can't just be like, I'm bored of this, I'm not going to do it, because everyone's relying on you finishing it. So yeah, there's that push through of like critical thinking, like how do I actually deliver this or make this work, or do I try a different angle? That is very, very, very valuable in the industry. And it makes you a great person to work with in a team, if you're able to be like, hey, how come you try it from this angle? Or is this maybe this thing I've seen works with this? That's always great,
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say it's very much a team sport. And yeah, if you've never had any practice working with a team, that can be quite jarring, I would argue, at first, if you've never done that kind of thing before. So I guess for people that aren't going to college, that let's say they just want to take a more DIY approach to their education, they just want to get the skills, start hustling around locally, whatever it may be. I mean, to me, it sounds like you need to be aware of the fact that you don't have practice working with the team, and you need to get that practice somehow. And maybe that's trying to get creative and finding other filmmakers in the area, see if you can composite some VFX, or maybe that's, I don't know, something that can give you that experience, even with just smaller projects first, before you're exposed to it on a much larger scale. I mean, would you say that that's a pretty solid route to go for someone that's not doing college?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I didn't have my university degree, and I was trying to learn and get better and basically build kind of a reel or a group of work that I can show to a studio, it would definitely be stuff like small freelance stuff with things that you could find. It'd also be stuff like, you could even do stuff like find someone who's really good at animation. And let's say you were doing simulation or rendering, and just contacting them, being like, can I render your animation? Can I just like work with you? Because even just passing files together, I've got a version, it's not working. Just even that small amount of back and forth is what we do, So yeah, it's just good to work how do I bring in something that might change from someone else? How do I store that data? Communication is, yeah.
Well, and along those lines too, what would you say are some of the do's and don'ts of project communication? Because communication is huge, and I'm sure you've worked with people that have been not communicating well, and people that have been communicating well. And what should someone focus on if they want to be a good communicator and they want to play nicely with the team? I guess, where do people go wrong and where do they go right?
I think the first thing to I think the first thing to think about is we're all on the same team. Even if it's your boss, even if it's your boss's boss or the VFX supervisor or anything, we're all trying to work towards delivering this thing for the client, let's say. So I think in terms of communication, stuff I've never really had over communication been too bad. I've always had under communication being way worse, where you don't know what someone's doing, or they've updated something and not told you, and that kind of stuff. It's way worse than telling me every half an hour that I've updated a file or I've put this out there or blah, blah, blah. So I think, just being a bit patient with people as well. It's very tricky to know people's levels, because a lot of the big studios, you all come in at the same title. Like you'll all be an artist. You might be an environment artist. You might be an effects artist. And within that, unless there is seniority titles, a lot of people can be good at some things, bad at others, struggling. And also at the end of the day, it's tough because everyone has their own lives outside of work as well, so you don't know what that person's had yesterday, so it's kind of just being, and VFX, it breaks all the time. Everything breaks. It's just constant. It's like trying to fix something that's trying to break itself, so
it's like an airplane. It's like an airplane that's on fire in mid-flight, and you're just
trying to shed its wings.
Yeah, exactly. Just running around like crazy the whole time.
No, definitely.
But yeah, I've heard the same thing where when people get embarrassed because they don't know something and they just kind of reserve them to themselves and they just silently struggle. That to me sounds like a big area, because I mean it's nerve-wracking. Let's say if this is your first job at a studio and you don't want to mess up, you don't want people to know that you don't know this or that, the other. But ironically, it backfires on everyone, including yourself, if you're not being clear, right?
And no one's going to judge you if you're just like, I don't know this. Can someone show me it? Because we all do that all the time at work, So it's not. Yeah.
Well, and I always tell people too, you're not getting paid for knowing all the answers ahead of time. You're often getting paid for being someone who's capable of finding the answers. Like in many ways, that is the work. Like I need to find the answer for this or that. And you're someone who's capable of finding it, not necessarily someone that wakes up in the morning and knows everything about CGI.
Yep. No, definitely.
Yeah. So
I would say a little bit of advice as well is I always appreciate when people just try a little bit, like you've seen that they've tried to figure out, because I've had some people that they just like, I don't know that. And there's not even effort to even see if there's anything on the docs or anything on the wiki or anything on Google. And sometimes I'll help someone by literally going on Google and typing in their question and finding the first tutorial,
Right.
So it's a sweet spot. Like if you really don't know what you're doing, have a little search around for half an hour and then go and ask questions, because at least you can then talk to someone and be like, I've looked on YouTube, I found this, but it doesn't look like it's going to work. And then you can build. But if you're like, I don't know, and then you just stand there, it can also get frustrating for senior people that are already super busy, So
it's at a certain point, and that's the other side of this coin. At a certain point, it can be disrespectful of people's time if you just sit there and you just say, answer, please. And that's it. And I try to encourage CG Forge students to do the same thing, where it's like, well, what have you tried first? And, kind of throw the question back before I spend a lot of time wrestling with whatever the issue is. And so, yeah, I think the best way to piggyback off of what you're saying, the best way to do it is research, ask a question and say, hey, here's what I've tried so far. And kind of get the ball rolling, and then that makes it easier for someone else to help you out.
Definitely. And also you might learn something from that senior artist. Might be like, that you'd think that it would work that way, but it doesn't. This is how it works. And then you're like, now I know why that doesn't, So rather than just receiving the answer and then not knowing how we got to that, So
yeah, exactly. Makes perfect sense. So another question here that I wrote down was, you have a lot of experience working with USD. You've done a lot of projects that are, dealing with massive amounts of data in USD. You've done a lot of awesome Node Bible, quick tips with USD. So, in your opinion, based on your experience, what are some of the pros and cons of USD from your perspective? And where does it shine and where does it maybe fall a little bit short sometimes?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we've been using it in production for kind of two years or so. I would say initially and I'm sure you've used it as well. The learning curve on it is kind of quite steep, and also just like a very different way of working to what traditionally what we've all been doing. So it's the power of, as you've seen in some of the demos and breakdown stuff, just the power to be able to handle huge amounts of data efficiently with version control and swapping out assets is just awesome. And like that, before you'd have to rely heavily on the pre-made pipeline of the VFX Studio to be able to do that. So what I love the fact that USD is it's bringing huge amounts of power to basically you in your bedroom, to be able to do this, and to be able to download a scene that's already good to go from someone completely from another software package, from another artist, is awesome. So amazing for collaboration. It's very open in terms of being able to read what's going on with your scene as well. Because I remember back in the day, like stuff like Maya render layers and stuff just being so closed off, and it's like and it could error and corrupt, and you're just there like you just have to hope that your scenes working. Do you know what I mean? But debugging in USD is like very transparent, and you can go very, very granular with it and really like read exactly what's happening. And then also stuff like being able to do variants of a shot so easily, and variants of an asset, just like package it together into one asset. And before I was using USD, it'd be tens of publishers to get this like environment out with all the elements and bits split off for different shots and split off so lighting can hide stuff, and now using it when we've had massive environments where it's just a single publish, it's just one asset that I'm putting out, and within that we can then layer stuff on and change things and swap things out for effects. So in terms of positives, incredibly powerful, used like most people are moving onto it. Lots of different companies outside of VFX are all using it as well in terms of real-time via AR and stuff like that. So it's definitely a positive to learn. Negatives can be steep learning curve, figuring out. It can be very technical as well. Like you can see it and it's just like looking at lines of code, and being like, well, how am I assembling this together? Houdini's done like a fairly good job of giving you a nodal representation and how to edit stuff. It can be a bit tricky, or I'm sure you might find this in other companies at the moment, trying to fit their old pipeline into a USD pipeline, but still maintain their old pipeline. But it's not USD, so it's kind of this squidge together of the old way they're trying to work and put it into a USD format, and USD is not designed like that. So I'm sure this is a common thread throughout a lot of big studios where you're trying to maintain all the dev work that you've made, all the software, all the version control, all the asset, all the pipeline, and then also bring in this USD package is like quite a headache, I'm sure, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But being able to run a sequence of short film in your bedroom, like that is awesome,
Well, that's a good point. I never thought of, old studios, or not old studios, but like studios with their existing pipelines, but some older scripts, some older workflows that they're used to. As you know, when someone develops their tool, they never want to see it die. They never want to see their old work get depreciated. It's just not a fun thing to witness if you've been someone who's been making tools and scripts and everything for years, right? And I feel like it's a tough line. It's a tough rope to balance, because on one hand, you have a lot of people, like let's say you're a studio, you have a lot of people that want to preserve their old work, and you still want to adopt something new. And then you end up kind of with the Frankenstein situation that you just described. I think that's a driving force in some cases of why you can't do that. And also, pipelines are very sticky. Like once you have a way of working and it works for your clients and you got it established, it's very difficult to deviate and it's very difficult to want to change because you have deadlines coming up next week. Like who wants to try this experimental thing? No one, because they want to go home at, a decent time tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And that I think is, I could see that being a tricky factor with integrating USD that maybe people haven't thought of entirely.
It's also just like you're running shows, or the studio doesn't stop, implement USD, and then start again. Like you have to do it while all the departments are working away. So
that burning airplane situation that we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
just always putting out fires. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, also it's just very expensive to do that, to write all this dev work, to hire a team to basically go through all these complex departments, all these complex workflows and readjust it,
Yeah.
So it's very tough. I do not envious of the big studios having to change over. It is the right thing to do, but it's tough.
Now, one area with USD that I personally have struggled with in figuring out as far as like an educational route goes is when is the best time to study USD? And, if you're a beginner, if you're an intermediate level user who's maybe been doing Houdini for a couple years, it is a complicated topic, like you mentioned. So do you know, or where would you see that fitting in with someone's educational journey or path, if you will? Like when's the ideal time to really try to dig into it?
Yeah, I think you could probably do it from the get-go, if I'm honest. I think you could just be in LOPS, in Karma, not really 100% sure what USD is. You know the general idea, but just using the nodes is using USD, and like just seeing your like USD hierarchy and how it's laid out. So I don't think there's a kind of like you now need to study USD, because Houdini gives you enough like guidance and nodes to know that you're not necessarily, you are using it, but you can kind of do a top level node version of it,
Mm-hmm.
I think just keep going and the knowledge will just keep going with it. I think there are some demo scenes which are great as well, where you can download a little shop and you can see how to switch out an asset version or a color. And I definitely know that side effects have like a kind of, we're going to start with a barrel and then we're going to load it in and we're going to make a component and then we're going to put that component in a layout. And, so I think it can go along with everything else as you're learning lighting. So if you're learning Karma and you're practicing and you've got your models laid out and you want to render them, I mean, that's all part of it, I think. So,
yeah. So it sounds like just start right away, kind of getting into it, and then pick up a little bit here and then pick up a little bit there. And, I personally have a different opinion on that, but I 100% see the argument for that, because if you don't get in over your head right away, and that's my biggest issue, is like if someone is just a beginner starting straight from scratch and they get into Houdini and they dive straight into the documentation for USD, that is a frightening experience for someone who's just starting if they really try to get into the nitty gritty. But to your point, if you just take what you need at first and you don't overcomplicate it and you just take a little here and a little there to serve your needs as you go, I agree if that's the approach, like you can totally make that work and just pick it up as you go.
It's a slow learning curve, even just getting your head around the concepts of it. It's one of those things that the more you do, it'll make sense. And when you hit a problem, you'll then know how to do it. We've had stuff like we've been trained where the whole curriculum's been put in front of us, and it's just so daunting. And there's so much jargon words as well with USD that mean completely different things. Mm-hmm. So I would say just if you're learning to light, basically, is probably the first, light and render is probably the first way you're going to start learning USD. It's just practice for lighting and rendering, So and I think you can get everything you need in Houdini at the moment to learn a large amount of the basics. So when you start doing lighting and you start rendering with Karma, you will be using USD and you will be figuring out how to do it as you go. You'll probably know more than you realized, at that level. So yeah, I think that's good.
Well, and it kind of follows, like, in general, I think the way that people learn Houdini and the way that they get good at it is by picking up a little bit here and a little bit there, and just, hey, I want to do this thing. And then along the way, I learned 7 things I wasn't expecting to learn. And you just over time kind of accrue this encyclopedia of nodes and knowledge in your head. And you don't even realize it until you look back maybe a year or two later. And it's like, wow, I know all of that. What do you know?
No, definitely. And because USD is universal across packages, the familiarity of like how it kind of works is going to be transferable, the concepts, So if same with like learning bits of Material X as well, like that's the ideas behind that are going to be across different things. So I don't think you can go too wrong. It is daunting, and some bits of it are not fun to do, but it's very cool when you can load massive scenes in your viewport and it looks cool and it's fast. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. And especially if you're someone who wants to do that kind of work, like big epic scenes or like just a lot of instancing, if that's because essentially USD is efficient via instancing as one of the things that it does like really well. If that's the kind of work that specifically you're into as well, I mean, definitely even more of an argument for it because of it's all built in, like you said.
Oh, definitely. And as an environment artist, that's what I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of which, so if someone wants to be an environment artist or wants to go in that direction, in general, what are some of the things that stand out that'll help you stand out? And are there any particular skills that you wish more people developed more to be great at that?
An environment artist. So kind of traditionally, there's a bit of a split in most studios about what an environment artist is. You'll get environment artists, which will be more DMP based. So that'll be 2D painting with Photoshop, projection, that kind of side. And then there will be more, and then there could as well be like more layout would be another discipline of environments. At Framestore, the environment artist is very generalist. So if you're in the 3D side, you do assets, you do lighting, you do rendering, you do look dev, you do instancing, you write tools, some big studios have more of a generalist department as well, which could be kind of under environments where you're a bit of a glue between everything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you'll work with effects, you'll work with animation, you'll work with layout, you'll be checking that cameras are working in your environment, that kind of stuff. So what people that good environment artists, it always hands more of the time we're going into Houdini. So we are pretty much fully in Houdini. So it can be quite a technical role as well. So I would say those technical directors environments is very exactly kind of what you want to be, because we end up doing stuff where we work with could be hundreds of assets, and to do that efficiently, there needs to be some understanding of proceduralism, technicality, maybe even a little bit of scripting and stuff like that. Those people that are strong with that normally do very well in environments. But then there is also people that are just incredibly good at matte painting and incredibly good at, asset layout and dressing, so it's quite, if you like doing bits of everything, then it's a very good role to go for, I would say.
Yeah. And artistically, it sounds like if you are trying to develop those skills, having a strong sense of photography and cinematography knowing composition, knowing how colors and light all kind of frame things, shape a scene, etc. That to me sounds like a great way to practice the artistic side. And then on the technical side, it sounds like, well, just being a Houdini artist, first of all, is a great way to get better at technically at understanding things. But I mean, how much of, let's say, Python might you suggest studying? Is that something you use a lot? Or in Houdini, are things a little bit more Vex based and maybe C++? For someone that wants to do more of the technical development, what comes first, in your opinion?
So I can kind of describe what I do on a day-to-day, but my role is environments technical lead. So that will be basically more complex technical environment builds and workflows and tools for the team. So that's kind of what my role is. I would say in terms of day-to-day, I use Vex. Like I'm probably writing Vex for 3 hours a day every day, do you know?
Nice.
So that's my number one. I do use Python, but it would be normally stuff like maybe we have tools or we have to ingest assets from different libraries. It could be coming from SpeedTrick, could be coming from Megascans, it could be coming from another vendor. You're dealing with a lot of data, a lot of naming, and you need to format that, move things into different folders, basically fit it in a pipeline, because everyone has their different way of naming a file, you know. So and publishing and automating and stuff. So there is an element of Python. I don't use it as much. Because with HCAs and Houdini, you can get so much from Vex and node setups and stuff like that. So predominantly, it will be Vex. I would say is my number one go-to.
Nice.
And I'm a bit guilty of just trying to do way too much in a Wrangle now.
Well, I don't know if that's such a bad thing. It sounds like that's pretty good once you get used to it.
Yeah, it's not fun to then give that to someone, or for you to go back after about 6 months and having to reread what you've wrote.
That's true. I've done that a few times in my courses. Like, it's like, oh, Tyler, what'd you do there? It's like, oh, man, that was 4 years ago. And there's like 20 lines of code. I have no idea. But
no, definitely.
But yeah, no, that's really good to know for sure. Yeah. And, you know, I in some ways, like these things share across many CGI disciplines, right? If you want to be a good lighter, combine artistic skills with technical skills. You want to be a good modeler. If you want to stand out, be good with technical skills and artistic skills. It really is, I think, across the board, but I think especially for environments, though, because unlike the other disciplines, you're working with such a heavy data set most of the time that everything needs to be very technically correct. Otherwise, the entire scenes that you're working on, they just become unusable and they become too heavy. And I imagine that's, especially for environment artists, you have to have that technical awareness. Otherwise, you can just blow something up pretty quick.
No, 100%. And we only have a certain amount of overhead in terms of memory because other departments need to fit in there as well, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we're a lot of the time is making LODs, or you're making stuff out of not necessarily full geometry. It might be half instancing. It might be made out of curves. It might be, you know, you don't know, to make it more efficient. Yeah, and that's where your technical side comes in, because if you have 25 assets, you don't want to be sat there making 25 LODs by hand. You know, you want to think of like, well, how can I do this so I can just, you know, do this? And let's say someone changes those assets, I want to rerun it again. So, and the more you use Houdini, the less like the way you think is a more procedural way. So you try to not depend on point count or selection or stuff like that, because you know that if you just like, as you're building it, like if this changes, will it break? You know?
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people frustrated when they've done a huge setup, a huge Houdini setup, and layout changes and the whole thing. You have to go through the whole thing and check it, and why is that not working? And blah blah blah. Blah. It's like it can be,
Yeah.
not fun.
Yep. I've run into that a couple of times myself, and yeah, it's not fun if you make that way too heavy.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. Exactly.
You'll appreciate it. Yourself will appreciate it.
It's worth the extra time. And actually, that's something that I just, as a side note to every Houdini artist out there, if you're sitting there and let's say you're working on a simulation and it's taking 2 minutes per frame to see what's going on. No. You got to hit escape. Just get out while you're figuring it out. Like, you got to keep it light footed. As much as possible, and anything that's heavy needs to be done like overnight, or thinking of simulation specifically, but it's true for environments as well.
Oh, definitely. That's why as well I've chose environments more, because I like Houdini, but I don't like waiting around.
Yeah.
So I like things to be like real-time feedback of what I'm doing. I hate waiting for a slow render, or I hate waiting for a simulation that's really long. That's why environments as well. I'm not
gotta get that instant adrenaline rush when you see a tree pop up on the screen, right?
Exactly. I just love sliders too much. Just things changing constantly.
Exactly. Well, zooming out a little bit here. So this is a question I like to ask everyone. When you look at your journey as an artist, and I'm sure your version of success has changed over the years. I'm sure that's something that's kind of always a changing, fluid thing. But right now, do you have a solid idea or vision of what success looks like for you as an artist? And if you do, then what advice might you give to other people who are seeking something similar?
Good question. I would say I'm content with myself. I'm happy with the level I've achieved, so I'm not, I would say that a lot of people that really like CG as well, there's always stuff to learn. So it's not really, you always don't feel like you've got to the end and it's like you've not completed it, There's always a new thing that's coming out that's really interesting. There's new areas to go into. I think naturally some of us are very just intrigued in things. That's our personality. We just like to learn. We like to do cool things. We like to do the next thing, So success, it's a tough one. I mean, I think I've done, I like to think I've done well, and I think I am at my level, but I think that's a very hard thing. That's more of a personal thing. If you feel like you've got to yourself, I would say though, don't put your success on a show or a company though, because I know too many people that it's just like you get there and you're like, well, this is not what I was expecting. Do you know what I mean? Or you do work on the show and it's like, well, this just wasn't fun. I would say there's a healthy element to have a boundary between you are working for the company and this show is the client's dream. It's not your dream. So, because otherwise you can be like, why they just changed your shot and made it worse? And you've pulled all the weekends trying to access your perfect shot. Something like that. I think there's a healthy element of being happy with the level you've achieved and also keen to learn more, and being humble about it. Yeah,
I totally agree. To me, that sounds like a couple of things. One, always preserve your curiosity. And two, always preserve a degree of your individuality as an artist. And because I've seen the same thing as well, where people, they get to their goal, or their dreams come true or whatever, and then all of a sudden they lose a bit of their identity, because so far their identity has been to get there or to be at this spot, because you have to work super hard to get to that level, and to the point where it's like an unhealthy obsession to work that hard for years and then get to that high level. But then to your point, once you're there, your life changes because, oh, you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. And just, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
No, definitely. And as you said, it takes a long time, doesn't it? And once you get there as well, it's not like there's not this warm sense of fulfillment. You do like you're happy you're there, but then there's always like the next thing you're interested in, So I think that's really good.
Well, and that part of you that you keep as an individual is the same part of you that is going to continue fueling excellence into the future. Like if you take your identity and you wrap it up into a company or to a project or to whatever, then you are giving away something that you should keep for yourself because it's what drives the excellence, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, in my own experience, because I went to college and I mean, I was working like 7 days a week, as many hours as I possibly could, and spending, late nights all the time. I was just grinding as hard as I possibly could for, 5-6 years roughly. And, the first big milestone for me was getting at Pixar for, doing a gig working with Coco and that movie. And it was kind of a similar thing. It's like, man, I'm here. And then all of a sudden, those 5 years that you've just been obsessively working, kind of something shifts a little bit and you have to find yourself as an artist again, essentially. And
no, I agree. But I'd also say when you do get to a good standard as well, just be humble about, because VFX is so complicated that you may think that you're like, and it's good to think like I can do this and confidence, but there's definitely an element of you can be, if you're overconfident and you're like, I'm the best at this or whatever, you'll end up bumping into the guy that wrote the software that you're the best at, or wrote the shaders, and it's like you'll be down the pub chatting to him and you're like, oh, that's the guy who literally made the thing we're doing. You know what I mean? So I don't believe as well that not sharing I don't think holding information benefits you either. I think we're a very collaborative industry. Everyone's putting up tutorials and stuff for free all the time, or like sharing and stuff. So I think just chatting about it, you'll be surprised that you'll actually learn more than holding the information you've learned. So, and even showing people as well just helps you, because they ask the questions because they ask it from a different point where they don't know. And they go, oh, actually, I don't know that. And then you look at it and then you learn something new, So it's just, communication and just like humble and stuff. So it's great.
Yeah. And if you keep to yourself and you don't engage in that, I feel like it's very easy to not only miss out on those learning opportunities, but just it kind of holds you back from being a part of that and growing as a result of other people's generosity that should be reciprocal as well.
Definitely.
I mean, I think everyone that's learned Houdini and these softwares has built that learning on the foundation of other people's generosity to a very large extent. And to not be generous yourself almost feels selfish when you zoom out and you look at it like that,
Kind of disingenuous to the industry, isn't it, really? Yeah.
Exactly. Not that everything should be for free. I mean, at a certain point,
still people are going to get paid, But
exactly. But I mean, there's something to that for sure.
Yeah, I was more coming at it as like you're working as a team at a company.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think it's a good spot to wrap it up. So thank you again, Rob, for being here. And for anyone that's interested in keeping up to date with you, I know you have a YouTube channel and you got a LinkedIn. And so we'll be sure to put any links like that in the description. But is there anywhere else that people can find you?
North London.
North London. There you go.
If anyone's in Framestore, London.
Not South London, but North London, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Good. All right. Thanks, man. I'll see you later.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye.